Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled that you can join us today. I'm particularly excited to introduce to many of you for the very first time the fifth provost in the 178th history year of the University of Notre Dame. Her name is Lynn Miranda, and she's been officially on the job as provost now for 23 days. But since she was appointed in March, she's been working very hard in the background together with Tom Burrish and many other leaders at the university to prepare the university for this adventurous and new academic year. Many of you know Lynn's incredibly impressive background. She comes to us having served for 5 years as provost at Rice University. Prior to that, she was dean of the School of National Resources and Environment at the University of Michigan. And prior to that, she served at her alma mater as a faculty member for 21 years at Duke University, where she won the top teaching award as a faculty member there. Lynn received her PhD in economics from Harvard University. She was a Truman Scholar, a National Science Foundation graduate fellow, and she and her husband, Chris, are in the process of purchasing a farm here south of campus at Notre Dame. They love to fish together, to be outdoors. And I think that finally on this farm, Lynn is going to fulfill a lifelong dream and become a beekeeper. So please join me in welcoming the Charles and Jill Fisher Provost of the University of Notre Dame, Lynn Miranda. Thanks for being with us, Lynn. First, I think that we know how busy you are at this time getting ready for the new academic year, but so thank you for making the time to be with everyone today. And I think the purpose of our session is for everyone to get to know you a little bit better. So if you could tell us a little about your background and what led you to be interested in the provostship here at Notre Dame.
Oh, thanks so much, Lou. First of all, thank you for inviting me to join the group and have an opportunity to meet in this funny way that we're meeting people these days through this live session. The University of Notre Dame, my family has had a connection to it for a very long time. My father, my mother, and my three brothers were all able to immigrate to the United States because of a fellowship that the University of Notre Dame offered my father. And while that that initial entry to the United States was made possible by Notre Dame, really, I would say the way that my family was welcomed and the way that they were treated by this community is what made my mother and father decide to stay in this country. That was at a time when people who looked like us were not necessarily as welcomed. And Notre Dame just wrapped them up in a big warm embrace. If my mom were here, she'd be crying thinking about it. So I had stepped down from the provostship at Rice and was in a process of discernment about what I might want to do next, and was approached about the Notre Dame provostship. And beyond my family connection to the university, I love the fact that the university has this unwavering commitment to undergraduate education, but undergraduate education that talks about mind, body, and spirit. So so I think there are I think everybody recognizes that the spirit part is important, but they come at it sort of sideways. And when you come at things sideways, you end up veering off. At Notre Dame, we say, this is central to our mission, and we address that directly with our students and really help them grow as full people. I really like that. And then the third thing I would say is that in terms of aspirational areas, there's a lot of interest at the university right now in ensuring that our graduate programs are of the same caliber as our undergraduate programs, and also raising the research profile of the university. Both things that I find interesting and challenging. I have some experience around, and I'm just excited to be here and to be, digging into all of these different opportunities.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and we think it's actually providential that you're here at this time in Notre Dame's history. But let me just take you back to something personal that you mentioned. When you stepped down as the provost at Rice, my understanding is that It was in large part due to the fact that your daughter, the youngest of three children, had been diagnosed with cancer. And I understand that when she was undergoing her chemotherapy treatments and she lost her hair, and a very touching anecdote that you shaved your head to be in solidarity with her. And I know that being attentive to your daughter during that time was very important to you. And she just completed her first year, I understand, at Duke, where she could be close to a major medical center as well. How is she doing, and how is your family doing at this point?
Yeah, so my daughter is a young woman of enormous grace and intellect, and she has this incredible quiet power that's really amazing. So when she was diagnosed and we were dealing with it as a family, she understood her disease very well. She's a scientist. She wants to, ironically, long before any of this happened, she had indicated that she wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. So she understood the science of what was happening to her very well, and she was in a position, it was important to us to empower her in the decision-making process so that she felt she had some control over what was going on. She was an incredible person to see in conversations with her healthcare team. And, for our family, we really focused, there's a lot of noise that goes on in all of our lives all the time. What happened with our family is that it became very clear to us that there was one priority, and that was getting her better. And that canceled out a lot of that noise. And, the other thing, I know we're not supposed to say good things about the University of Michigan here, but we benefited from excellent care from the University of Michigan. The medical center there saved our daughter's life. So I still want us to beat them in football and basketball and all those other things, but we'll always be grateful for that good care. And it makes us as a family think about all the individuals who don't have the same access to good care. And that, for me, the health and well-being initiative here at the university is directly tied to that. But she's doing really well. Her last sets of scans have been as good as we possibly could have hoped. She's getting excited about going back for her sophomore year. So it's been like, it's a little sad that she's, going away, but we're so happy that she's able to go away that's the dominant emotion for us.
Well, that's great. Well, know that I'm one among many in the Notre Dame family who is keeping her and her health and all of you in our prayers. Now you come in, you're succeeding Tom Burrish, who had just a great 15 years at moving the Notre Dame and the academy forward. You had a relationship with Tom that precedes this. Can you tell us a little bit about that and about that relationship?
Yeah, so I met Tom quite a number of years ago. He was well known as a very effective, very thoughtful, long-serving provost. And so I'm one of these people who believes that we all need mentors throughout our lives, no matter what position you're in, and having coaches available no matter what position you're in. So I reached out to him, and those of you who know Tom know that he was gracious in his response. And so I got into this mentoring relationship with him. The interesting thing about it is through this process, and one of the times that I was visiting South Bend, he met my daughter Viviana, who we were just talking about, and they are fast friends. So I'm pretty sure he agreed to continue mentoring me because it meant that Viviana would be around more often. They talk about, so I don't know how many people realize that Tom's original research was with pediatric cancer patients. And so they are deep in the science of both the treatments that are going on right now, but also the emotional reaction of my daughter talked about her own, but my daughter was also really observant. So I'm thankful that my daughter kind of got me this in with Tom, and he was willing to be so gracious and helpful to me. This shortly after I was named as provost, I started engaging with the university because of everything going on with COVID-19. And I will say I really enjoyed that time period when there were two provosts. And I was just talking to Tom earlier this morning, and he asked me, how's it going? And I said, I miss having two provosts. So, but he was gracious as ever, helping me out with a question that I had. And, I realize I have very big shoes to fill. He's a special person and has done amazing things for this university.
Well, this makes for, the relationship certainly makes for even a more seamless transition. And, in the modern history of Notre Dame, perhaps in its 178-year history, there isn't, just the fifth provost. And I'm not sure that any provost has come into perhaps a more troubling moment in kind of the US and global history. And in particular, if we just step back and focus on the coronavirus pandemic, how has that shaped your early days so far at Notre Dame?
So first of all, I certainly started engaging very deeply, much sooner than I otherwise would have if it was sort of a regular transition year. So I spent an enormous amount of time in South Bend or on Zoom with other people in South Bend since mid-March. And I've been, that pre-existing relationship with Tom really helped. I've also been drawing on my experience being a leader at Rice during Hurricane Harvey, so a big emergency. How do we take care of everybody in the community, et cetera. I also, it feels lucky that my research area is in public and environmental health. So a lot of the concepts and the scientific literature that one would need to read to really be on top of this is stuff that I read anyway. So that's pretty helpful. And I'm also a data scientist. So all the different ways that you would track data and track information to be able to manage things well, that's been pretty helpful. It's been really important to get to know people early, and you're getting to know them under exigent circumstances. And I think we're all sort of familiar with that. As you get to know people, you're a little bit hesitant about, well, how do I approach this, and how do I talk to this person, and how do they get to know what my personality is like? And for all of us on the leadership team, it's sort of like we have to dive all the way in and be talking directly to each other. So I feel like I've progressed through all those stages of professional relationships and friendships with people, the stages that you might go through and over the course of 3, 6, 9, 12 months, that we did all of that like in my first 10 days. Right. So, I feel like I've known the leaders here for a lot longer, and that has been helpful to sort of get through all of that and be able to talk really directly and understand better who has what expertise to help us answer which questions and move forward that way. So it's the leadership team here at the university is really impressive.
Well, that was going to be my question, is that, you've been here a short time, but it's been an intense period already. What are your first impressions of the Notre Dame family?
So first of all, I think the leadership team here is impressive in terms of its skills and talents and capabilities. What is more impressive to me, however, about the entire university is the extent to which the mission of the university is foremost in everybody's minds. So I think every university thinks of itself as a mission-driven institution, and they talk about their mission. What's interesting to me, and what I think is wonderful about the University of Notre Dame, is when we're faced with a question, people go straight to our mission statement and start thinking about, okay, if this is our mission statement, how do we think about answering this question or solving this problem? And as a consequence, the problem solving is, so first of all, there's much less ego in the room. It's truly about problem solving. And the problem solving is much more creative, because while we have that common mission statement, we all have different ways that we make that mission statement come alive when we bring that into the room. This distinctive Catholic character of the university, I think, is contributing to our ability to be well prepared and to be good colleagues to each other, good to our students, good to our faculty and staff.
That's great to hear. You've certainly had experience at other top universities, so that's a nice affirmation. So we've received lots of questions from members of the Notre Dame family, in particular, current Notre Dame parents. And bottom line to all those, the nuances of their questions would be, are we ready? Are we COVID-19, prepared to protect the safety of our students and our faculty as we resume classes and they start to move in just in the next couple of weeks? How could you address that question, and what are still the questions that keep you up at night?
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, nothing keeps me up at night. It is, in fact, my superpower that whenever people say to me, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about this problem, I always say to them, no, you should be sleeping in the middle of the night. So I don't necessarily sleep a lot of hours, but I'm out when I'm out. In terms of our preparations for the start of the semester, I think we're doing all the right things to be prepared. And I'm not just saying that because it's it's the politically correct thing for the provost of a university that's going to be opening on August 10th to say. As I said, I'm in public health, and I think what you'll hear from what you'll hear from our colleagues here, Lou, is that I've been pushing really hard about any number of things that I thought we needed to do to be ready. And I'm so impressed with the way that the university has stepped up. So I think we're doing all the right things to be prepared. We have an on-site testing center. We have good facilities available for quarantine and isolation. We have excellent health and safety protocols. We have a whole communications campaign to ensure that people are paying attention to the health and safety protocols. Excuse me. We're getting all of our buildings ready with increasing air circulation in the buildings, having signage up everywhere about what we're expecting people to do, having, there's more hand sanitizer available on this campus than you can possibly imagine, disinfectant materials available all over the place. And other really important things, we're paying very close attention to mental health resources for our students, but also for our faculty and staff. We know that COVID-19 has been stressful, and it has been with us for a while, and it's going to continue to be with us for a while. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to the mental health issues. And we're also trying to pay particular attention to advising resources for students, because this is a time when, depending upon whether they have medical reasons for taking courses online, it may be better for them to take a different mix of courses. They may not, they may need more advice and guidance regarding the courses that they're in or what they might want to do in their futures, et cetera. So we want to make sure that our students are really feeling, our undergraduate students are really feeling well connected and advised. And similarly for our graduate students, we want to make sure that when we say students, they understand we mean them too. So we're paying attention to mental health issues for them and ensuring that they have the resources that they need to succeed and to feel safe and to feel happy about being back in community together.
In the classes, can you say something about that? They're going to be taught in a dual modality kind of manner as well as in different sections. Can you say a little bit about that?
So we've equipped the classrooms, and we've equipped all the classrooms with the capability of what we refer to as dual delivery technology. So you can imagine you might be in a course and you have 25 students in the course, and at some point or another during the semester, we are going to have COVID cases on campus. That I think that is a given. So at some point or another during the semester, you may have a student who's in isolation, or you may have a student who was a close contact for a COVID-19 positive case, so they're in quarantine. So they're over in these facilities, they can't come into the classroom, so we need to make sure that there are ways, and since you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, we have to make sure that there are ways for our students to keep up with their classwork as their health allows them to do that. So and this is another reason why that additional advising and counseling and availability of resources is important, because we need to make sure that students are feeling fully supportive. At the same time, we have a whole series of training courses offered to our faculty to make sure that they are understanding how the dual technology works, and how to best use it, how to be teaching to a class in front of you, and also be aware of students who might be on a computer screen over here, and how to do that effectively. So we're doing a lot of training of our faculty as well.
Fantastic. So your own research, in some ways, when we look at all of the challenges that the country is going through right now, beyond the pandemic, in terms of all of the racial unrest and the injustices that we've seen in everybody's home recently, that have helped to inflame a long-standing problem in the history of this country. Can you tell us a little bit about your background at Rice as the provost, and how you see kind of addressing issues of diversity and inclusion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my research is on health disparities. So I've been working on issues of racial and social justice. I'm a quantitative scientist, so using quantitative methods to look at all of that for a very long time. I'm female, and I'm a person of color, and I'm in a field that doesn't have that many women or people of color in it. So on many an occasion, I found myself to be the only female or the only person of color in the room, and so there's my lived experience, but there's also the fact that I'm just a avid reader of everything I can get my hands on. So I've read a lot of the organizational behavior literature coming out of business schools, and the psychology literature and sociology literature about all of this. And for me, Father John has said, and I agree with him, we have some road to travel here at the University of Notre Dame. Our student body could be more diverse, and that would likely strengthen the experience both for our students of color, but also for all of our students. Our faculty could be more diverse across all ranks. We could have more diversity in our leadership teams. I think a lot as well about our staffing, and whether or not our staffing is diverse, and not just at the in the non-exempt staff, but in our middle and upper managers. How are we looking at diversity there? I spent a lot of time working on diversity amongst undergraduate students, graduate students, staff, and faculty at Rice. Learned some things from it, and have already been engaging with a whole series of different groups about what kinds of goals should we set, how can we hold ourselves accountable against those goals, and what kinds of activities will help us achieve those goals.
Fantastic. Well, you are also the longstanding director of the Children's Environmental Health Initiative. And so I can't imagine that there's many senior administrators, provosts in the country who maintain their own lab to this day. Can you talk a little bit more detailed about this initiative and your role that you play in it, and how you're going to be moving the lab here to campus?
Yeah, sure. So CHI, the Children's Environmental Health Initiative, we call it CHI. I founded it at Duke, and it moved with me from Duke to Michigan to Rice, and now here to South Bend. I'm really grateful for these incredibly committed members of my research team, who at least one of whom has he is in a moving truck today, moving from Houston to here. So he's been with the team the whole time, and that is a kind of glue for the organization that's really helpful. We do work on children's environmental health, and in particular, our technical bailiwick is in the spatial analysis of data. And by that, I mean that for every piece of data we collect, we attach a spatial location to it. And then we connect different kinds of data that you might get from different places. We connect it via shared geography. So you have all these different data layers, and you use shared geography to pierce through these different data layers to connect them. And then we sort of exploit the underlying spatial structure to get new insights. So for example, we've worked on things like, how do you identify the houses that pose the greatest risk for childhood lead exposure? We've worked on things like, where do we need to worry about presence of allergens and asthma triggers? Where do we need to worry about issues of childhood abuse and neglect? Pesticide exposure, and because the methods that we use are actually equally applicable to adults, we're oftentimes approached to work on adult health endpoints. So when we initiate something, it's always about kids. When we get approached, it's sometimes about adults. So we worked on diabetes and hypertension, and actually we're working on COVID-19 right now. And in terms of maintaining a research program, so there are two big reasons to do it. Number one, the questions are too important to me. I can't stand for them not to get answered. So we're in the middle of a project right now that's on racial residential segregation and educational residential segregation, which we believe provides great insights regarding some of the turmoil that we're seeing in the country right now. So I can't not work on that. The second reason that it's important to do it is it helps me to understand the daily lives of our faculty. So when the federal government passes a new regulatory requirement, I have to fill out those forms too. When the way that grant applications work at the university, I have to work through that system too. So the effort certification forms, I have to do that too. So it gives me sort of optics into the daily nitty gritty of the research lives of our faculty in a way that I think helps me to serve them better as provost.
My understanding, Mary Lynn, is that you've already in your first 23 days officially been meeting with several different groups on campus and different faculty members. Who are some of those groups that you've been meeting with, and what kind of what are you hearing as a new provost?
Yeah, well, anyone who'll talk to me, basically. So I've had lots of, unfortunately not that many in-person meetings, but lots of Zoom meetings with, certainly the whole leadership team here. But also I've been meeting regularly with all of the deans and all of the associate provosts, all of the department chairs, faculty groupings by some interest areas. So there are some faculty who are doing work on COVID-19. So I got to know them relatively quickly because I, was posing questions to them, asking them like, hey, can you figure this out? And I'm also a big fan of what we all call it. It's not like I came up with this term, walk and talks. So anytime my husband and I are both outdoors people. So anytime I can be outside instead of inside, I'm for it, even when it's really cold and snowy. So spend a lot of time, and in the outdoors, you can, because of the public health protocols, it's a little bit easier in some ways to connect with people. So I've been spending a lot of time walking around campus with different people and meeting them. And I walk back and forth we haven't yet bought the farm. Right now I'm living in a townhome right on Angela Boulevard. So I walk back and forth to work, and I talk to, all the different people I meet, whether it's, contractors who are working on something in with the McKenna, is it the McKenna Center? The McKenna Center, or a staff person who's going in, or a faculty member who's riding their bicycle. So I'm trying to absorb as much as I can, as quickly as I can, about the university.
Fantastic. So, one of the challenges that you have is that as you begin, so much work has clearly gone into being COVID-19 preparedness of the university.
Yeah.
Have you had any chance yet with Father John and others to begin to kind of think about what are going to be your goals and objectives, maybe for the university over the next 5 or 10 years? Or
Yeah.
when do you get to that kind of long range thinking and planning, and how do you get to it amidst this crisis?
So this is a great question, Lou. I would say my biggest fear about the upcoming year is that the fall semester and the spring semester are going to go by, and all we will have done is survived COVID-19.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure that we spend some of our time and our energy, and meaningful amounts of time and energy, on how do we advance the mission of the university. So I've already talked with Father John, and he's very much of the same mind that we need to ensure that the strategic planning process moves forward. One step in that strategic planning process that I've already taken is I've sent around a survey to all of the faculty, asking them what are they most excited about in their teaching, what are they most excited about in their research, what's an example of Notre Dame at its best, and what's something they want me, the provost's office, more generally, to pay attention to, whether it's a lingering problem or an opportunity they don't want us to miss. And then a last question, which is, and here's where you come in, Lou, if resources were unlimited, what's a big, exciting idea you would like to see the university undertake? So we'll get that in from all of the faculty. We'll figure out ways to do similar idea generation and gathering from staff and from our undergraduate and graduate students as well. And we'll start using all of this. And here's where the data scientist part comes in handy, because it's all free text. So I'll certainly read everything that people send in. Like I said, I read everything that people put in front of me. But we'll also do some natural language processing and other approaches to see some themes that are coming out of all of this. In terms of areas that I know already that we're gonna want to address, one of them is around faculty diversity, and also access and access and affordability for students from low resource backgrounds, and making sure that those students have a good experience, as do our faculty when they come here. The other thing that I would say is that I think we're probably underinvested in science and engineering for what our aspirations are, in terms of the perception of the world of us as a university, but also what we're able to give to the world. I don't mean this in any way to undervalue what all the other schools are doing. It's incredibly important. But relative to our aspirations, we're probably underinvested in science and engineering. And I'm hoping that we can make some progress on planning around changing that.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions about the arc of kind of higher education in responding to this pandemic, how do you think this is going to change higher education going forward? It was interesting just talking before you came on with the members of ND Studio who are putting this broadcast together and doing a phenomenal job. They said that they had a 5-year plan, and they basically have implemented their 5-year plan over the last 4 months. Yeah. And so in some ways there can be real blessings, right? Silver linings to this cloud that it forces us to adapt and change and grow at a more accelerated pace than ever. What do you see is transformations that are going to come to, especially select higher education, but more broadly higher education from this pandemic?
So first of all, I think one of the things that we're learning is that students are saying it's not the same being fully online. So there's been some affirmation, incredible affirmation all over the country, not just by our own students, of the value of in-person education. So There's lots of evidence that our model of residential education is one that works especially well for students, and is something that we're going to want to continue to pursue. At the same time, that being said, I think online and remotely delivered courses are a critically important complement to what we're doing. So excuse me. So for example, if we have a student who's studying abroad and they're an engineer and they really need to get this one course so that it's in sequence, so they can stay in sequence, but they still want to be able to study abroad, if we can offer that to them in an online format, that means they get to graduate on time and they get to have this amazing study abroad experience. It's also the case that I love that ND Studio said that because one of the things that we've talked about is having more active and engaged learning. So there's a whole series of digital assets that we're creating, recorded lectures of faculty on a particular topic. And if that enables us, if students are as part of their preparation for class, are watching some of those digital assets and sort of learning that way, and then they come into class, and in the classroom itself, you can do these much more hands-on or collaborative or team-based, all kinds of creative different things. All this work that we're doing to be able to deliver the fall 2020 semester successfully will improve and enrich all of our courses going forward, and also puts us in a good position to have a portfolio of classes that are available for us to offer during summer school. So my daughter, who's a student at Duke, is taking her physics online, both Physics 1 and Physics 2, from the University of Notre Dame, because Duke didn't have the courses available for her to take online. So there are ways that this digital pivot that we're having to do so it's certainly enabling us to keep going during COVID-19. But the other thing that it's going to do is strengthen what we deliver in the residential setting because of all this good work. And I have to give a shout out to ND Studio and ND Learning and how hard and all of our faculty who are working so hard to make these good things happen.
That's great. So these are incredibly unpredictable times. Sometimes it's difficult to plan as we look at dynamics like a football season, everybody coming together. It's difficult to plan a month.
Yeah, I don't have to answer any questions about the football season. I'm just going to go on record saying that.
But they're incredibly unpredictable times. And especially as the COVID-19 numbers seem to surge of late. Is there anything that you can share about your hopes, your expectations, your concerns for the fall semester as we welcome back students in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, so there's a lot being written in the media right now that's about how irresponsible young people are, and they don't care about practicing good public health protocols, and they think that they're invincible, and they don't really care about whether they're asymptomatic carriers and could hurt other people. And I've worked with young people all my life, and I am getting mad about the way that people are talking about young people right now. I've had the opportunity to meet a small handful of students from the university already. I've heard a lot about our students, and I've been at other, good universities. And I think our students, they came to the University of Notre Dame because they believed in our mission too. And they believe in this idea that we are one community. So I love the we are ND, that sense of spirit amongst our students. And I believe that our students are going to rise to the challenge of coming back together, doing the things that they need to do, and defying the expectations of, I feel kind of badly about people who are cynical about young people. They clearly don't have the lucky job that I have of being around young people all the time. The other thing that I would say is that, we have to be prepared for the worst. We have to do all kinds of planning for what happens if we have an outbreak and, 5 different dorms at the same time. Do we have enough quarantine space? Do we have enough isolation space? what if the timing on, what if the amount of time it takes to get tests turned around, gets lengthened. So we have to plan for the worst. We're thinking through all this stuff. We're doing these simulations and tabletop exercises and all of that. At the same time, and I say this as a scientist, that, we have to remember all the positive developments. So first of all, we can test for the virus, which, was not available to us 3-4 months ago, right? So we can test for the virus. The quality of those tests is getting better and better. The length of the time on turnaround for some of those tests is getting better and better. And I'm absolutely convinced that whatever is true about the testing environment right now, 2 months from now, that information is going to be completely outdated. 2 weeks from now, that information is going to be completely outdated. So we can test for the virus, and the tests are getting better and better. We understand so much more about the transmission of the virus. And if we understand how the virus is transmitted, then we're in a much better position to put in the right public health protocols. So there is nothing more important than wearing a mask. Right. Physical distancing is right up there, but wearing a mask is the most important thing. So the head of the CDC just said this a few weeks ago, said this last week, that if everybody just wore their mask for 2 to 3 weeks, we could bring those numbers back down. And I think he's absolutely right about that. The third thing I would say is that we have better treatments for people who become really sick. So we have both remdesivir and dexamethasone, and as a consequence, the mortality rates for people who are hospitalized are going down. And the fourth thing that's the fourth really positive development is that there are promising treatments on the horizon for anybody who is diagnosed positive with COVID-19. So there are things that are already in phase 3 clinical trials, which have performed extremely well in phase 1 and 2. That they would be along the lines of Tamiflu. So if during seasonal flu season, if you're diagnosed with seasonal flu and you're diagnosed early, you take Tamiflu, and it just really reduces the extent to which the infection hits you. So we have companies who have these dual neutralizing antibody drugs that are being tested and are looking really promising. So and that's not a 3 years from now possibility. That's on the horizon in the next 3 to 6 months. So I would say that we have to focus on doing everything that is under our control. Right. And we have to do those things that are under our control with excellence. So our testing center has to be top notch. Our data systems have to be top notch. Our isolation and quarantine facilities have to be top notch. So we have to do everything that's under our control with excellence. And at the same time, we have to get ourselves into a flexible and agile mindset that allows us to change quickly as new developments, whether positive or negative, as new developments come along. We are going to have to be, on the balls of our feet, ready to change, ready to take in that new information and say, so this is what it means in terms of what we need to do differently at the university. This is a place that, this is a place that can do that. And this is a place, and we can do it. Again, going all the way back to your first question, we can do it because of the skills and capabilities of the people who are here, whether it's our students or our faculty or our staff. But the real reason we can do it is because we're the Fighting Irish. We have a way of being in the world that is hopeful, that is optimistic, but is also realistic and pragmatic and hardworking and competitive and relentless in the way that we are trying to approach this problem. So it shouldn't really be the case that with everything that is going on in the world right now, that I am as happy as I am. But I'm happy because in this good fight that we're in against this disease and against issues of racial injustice and against problems of climate change. So in this hard and good fight that we're in, I have the opportunity to be in that fight here at Notre Dame. And that is the very best place to be. I'm so very excited to be here.
Well, that's a terrific answer. And anybody who's been around you knows that the attention to detail and the fight and the hours that you're putting into making sure that our community is going to be as safe as possible and that we're going to control everything that we can control. For those of us who have an inside look at it, our hearts are grateful and hopeful, and we have high expectations as well. And so my curiosity is going to get the best of me. So I've got to ask a final question, and that is, tell me about the bees. Passion of keeping bees. It's actually something I've thought about for a long time. So where does that come from, and why are you so excited about doing this, and how are you going to find the time, God knows, to maybe it doesn't take that much time to take care of bees, but let us know a little bit more about that.
Okay, so first of all, I love honey. What's not to love about honey?
Okay.
Secondly, I mentioned that I do spatial analysis of data, which means that I spend a lot of time thinking about geometry and trigonometry. And bees are really good at geometry and trigonometry, and they're also really good dancers, right? They signal to each other where good places to forage for nectar are through their dancing. So like a whole group of creatures that are good at geometry and trigonometry and are good at dancing, those are my people. So, and also I will point out that all the good and hard work that gets done in a hive is done by females. So I have wanted to be a beekeeper as long as Chris and I have been married, and next week we will have been married 30 years. Wow. So we will finally, when the purchase on this place goes through, we will finally be living in a place where we can keep bees. You've met Chris. I can't wait for everybody else to meet him. He's the love of my life. I'm biased about him, but I'll share this with you, Lou. He came in the other day and he said to me, I've been thinking about the bees. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, you said we should start with 4 bee boxes, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, why don't we start with 400? And I said, well, I'm going to be a little busy this fall, so maybe 4.
I love it. He's thinking big. That's fantastic.
He's a big thinker.
That's great. Well, I know, Mary-Lynn, everybody in the community who was looking in will be seeing rebroadcasts of this. They're dying to meet you. And as soon as we can move beyond some of the physical distancing, challenges that we're all confronted by now, I know people are going to love to get close to you and get to know you up front and personal. But we're excited, and we're so grateful for your leadership. Let me just make a plug for next Wednesday. We are going to be joined at noon by 2 young rising star faculty members, Mark Sanders from the English department and LaDonna Forsgren from film, television, and theater. And they are 2 of the prime movers behind a new initiative called the Center for Comparative Race and Ethnicity. And so they're going to be sharing their stories with us and a little bit about their vision. But I want to thank you again, Mary-Lynn, for this time. And I know everybody is excited to get to know you better. If you would join me, the way we typically close these meetings and ask everybody in your own homes or workplaces, let's close together with a Hail Mary.
All right.
Hail Mary, full of grace,
Thee,
blessed art thou among women.
and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary,
Mother of God, pray for sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Thank you again, Mary-Lynn. Thank you all for joining us. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lou.
Bye-bye.